Imagine losing a child. Now imagine, years later, finding out that the government didn't let that child rest. Instead, they secretly took parts of them, bone, tissue, and limbs, to see how much nuclear fallout was settling in the American population. This isn't a horror movie plot. It was a top-secret mission authorized by the Atomic Energy Commission. It was called Project Sunshine, and it was the moment the US government started body snatching in the name of national security. By 1953, the Cold War was at a boiling point. The US was detonating bombs in the desert like firecrackers. But they had a problem. Radioactive debris, specifically strontium-90, was falling back to Earth. Scientists realized this isotope was a calcium seeker. It didn't just disappear. It mimicked calcium and locked itself into human bones, especially those of growing children. The government panicked. They needed to know if the American people were becoming walking Geiger counters. But to get the answers, they needed bones. Fresh, young, human bones. The Atomic Energy Commission, led by Commissioner Willard Libby, issued a chilling directive. They didn't just want bone fragments, they wanted entire skeletons. Libby famously stated that if they could find a human haystack of samples, they could map the end of the world. But there was a catch. They couldn't ask for consent, because if parents knew their deceased babies were being harvested for nuclear research, the public outcry would shut the project down. So they went underground. They turned hospitals into supply chains and doctors into unwitting agents of the state. Project Sunshine wasn't just a group of scientists in lab coats. It was backed by the full weight of the US intelligence community. Declassified CIA records reveal that as early as 1953, the agency was deeply embedded in the debate over human experimentation. While the world believed the Nuremberg Code was an unbreakable shield protecting human rights, internal documents show the CIA was a key member of the DoD Committee on Medical Sciences. They weren't there to enforce ethics. They were there to manage the tasking of information on the medical effects of nuclear weapons. This created a shadow protocol where national security outweighed the sanctity of the human body, allowing the hunt for samples to begin in total secrecy. The operation was cold, calculated, and global. The Atomic Energy Commission created a database that would eventually hold nearly 7,000 records of items and people of interest. They needed fresh bones, specifically from stillborn babies and young children, because their bodies absorbed strontium-90 like a sponge. Dr. Willard Libby, the project's architect, was blunt in his demands, famously stating that body snatching was a matter of prime importance to the nation. This led to a grotesque international pipeline. In places like Australia and the UK, limbs and spines were harvested during routine autopsies without the parents' knowledge or consent. These samples were then packed into crates and shipped across the ocean to secret incinerators in Chicago and New York. The ultimate goal was to bridge the gap between animal data and human reality. As early as 1946, researchers were already documenting the distribution and excretion of plutonium in human subjects. Scientists argued that they needed to parallel their animal observations in humans to justify their nuclear program. People weren't patients anymore. They were biological indicators used to study how radioactive elements like plutonium settled into human organs and tissues. By the time the project reached its peak, thousands of individuals had been tracked, analyzed, and reduced to data points in a massive, secret effort to map the end of the world. The government had turned the globe into one giant laboratory, and every citizen was an unwitting participant. For decades, the United States government operated under a double standard that is hard to stomach. While American prosecutors at Nuremberg were condemning Nazi doctors for crimes against humanity, our own agencies were finding ways to bypass those very same ethical codes. Internal CIA and DoD memos show a cold, calculated debate on how to implement ethical guidelines without slowing down nuclear research. They knew what they were doing was wrong. The 1995 ACHRE ACHRE findings explicitly state that these experiments were often shrouded in secrecy, not for national security, but to protect the government from embarrassment and liability. They didn't just break the law, they broke the fundamental trust between a state and its people. The numbers are staggering, but the individual stories are haunting. Scientists at the Argonne National Laboratory and the University of Chicago were already documenting the effects of plutonium on human subjects as early as 1946. These weren't volunteers. They were patients like Cecil Kelly, a lab technician who was exposed to a massive dose of radiation and then monitored until his final breath. In the case of Project Sunshine, the victims were even more defenseless. Thousands of records now exist, detailing the disposition of human remains, limbs, spines, and thyroid glands taken from those who never had a voice. For the families, the realization didn't come for 40 years. They buried empty caskets, never knowing that their loved ones had been turned into biological samples for the Atomic Energy Commission. In 1995, the veil finally lifted. When the Advisory Committee on Human Radiation Experiments released its report, it sent shockwaves through the nation. The President of the United States had to stand before the world and apologize for the unethical actions of his predecessors. But even then, the truth was nearly sanitized. Early drafts of the report warned that the contents did not yet represent final conclusions, a sign of the ongoing struggle to balance transparency with state secrets. Today, we have the documents, nearly 7,000 records of items and experiments that prove the unthinkable. The question that remains isn't just why they did it, but what else is still hidden in the archives, waiting for the next declassification. Project Sunshine officially ended, but its legacy is literally etched into our skeletons. The data gathered from those stolen samples proved that nuclear fallout doesn't stay in the desert. It travels through the air, into the grass, into the cows, and finally, into the milk our children drink. The ACHRE report confirmed that for decades the government knew the risks, yet they prioritized the prestige of the nation over the safety of the individual. We are the first generation in human history to carry the chemical signature of the atomic age in our very bones. They didn't just study the fallout, they documented our slow, collective contamination. The most terrifying realization isn't what they did in 1953. It's what we don't know today. The documents we've examined, from CIA ethics debates to the 7,000 hidden records of human items, were only released after 40 years of silence. If the government was willing to harvest the remains of children to map a nuclear winter, what are they doing now under the guise of biosecurity or AI safety? Today, our data is the new biological sample. As we close this chapter on Project Sunshine, remember, the archives are never truly empty. They are just waiting, but here is the hardest part to swallow. This isn't some dark conspiracy theory whispered in the corners of the internet. It's not a movie plot or a creepypasta. This is a cold, documented, and terrifying fact. While our grandparents and great-grandparents were building their lives, chasing the American dream, and raising their children, the government they trusted was operating in the shadows. They were turning the most painful moments of a family's life, the loss of a child, into a secret harvest for the nuclear machine. This happened. It happened in our hospitals, in our cities, and to our people. The very same documents you've seen today are the receipts of a betrayal that lasted decades. We don't have to wonder if it's true. We only have to wonder what they are still keeping from us today. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and most importantly, keep watching the shadows. This is reversed reality.